Hello, we are the cast and crew of Top Hat, and we're here to walk you through the changes which we made between our prelim task and our final task.
Firstly, we had changes from the planning. Our planning between the two films varied drastically. With our preliminary, we simply sat down, chatted about what we thought could manage to film in and around the school site, and we went for a more off-the-cuff style, which, considering the film was only 39 seconds long, we thought that kind of worked. In contrast to this, our planning for the actual filming project, Top Hat, it was much more intensive and inclusive of a range of media and research techniques. For example, we looked into past films and their techniques, ranging from typography to cutting rates. An example of this is my own research into the typography in Nightmare on Elm Street. This gave us the ability to see how other people would have worked. And all this research was put onto a blog that we made, which would allow us to refer back to it whenever we thought necessary to have a look at the work we'd done.
Our cutting rate for the prelim task was also rather different to the final piece, with a fairly slow cutting rate as we used quite sustained shots throughout, with a particularly long tracking shot of Hamish, as we felt it towards build tension. With the final film, we had a considerably faster cutting rate though, because of the increased amount of visuals we had in the film and the relatively short space of time we had to put them all together. For the lighting in our film, we decided to keep natural lighting as it was shot on a fairly well-lit day, and as such we didn't need enhancement. In our final film, however, there were a couple of shots, such as the bedroom scene, where the lighting wasn't as we wanted, so we used Adobe Premiere to add shadow to some of the shots. In our prelim task, though, we didn't add any titles. For our final piece, however, we decided that, to add titles throughout in the least cluttered parts of the shot to make them as unobstructive as possible.
Excellent, thanks for that, Alex. For the filming, we only used 2 tripods and a longboard. We used 2 tripods to create the best sense of height and to get the nice low angle shots that we needed for the running shot going outside, and for the larger tripod to create the more high angle shots to look down. We also used a longboard for tracking shots to be able to create speed and a sense of urgency within our shots. For the preliminary, however, it was very similar. We only had a tripod, we didn't have anything else. And also for preliminary, we didn't really prepare what we were going to do. We only used 7 shots, and most of them were either Steadicam shots or still shots, but not as many close-ups, whereas in our actual filming we used a lot more close-ups, in the end around 30 different shots, which is quite a big difference.
In the prelim task, our costume was very simple, as we decided that because we didn't have much time, there was no need to get anything particularly extravagant, so we just filmed it in our school uniforms. For the final piece, however, we tried to dress up the actors to differentiate them with different costumes, such as the antagonist's suit and the protagonist's just generally normal clothing. We used different locations for the final task and prelim as well, because with the limited time we had to film the prelim, we just used the school and the areas around it. Whereas with the final film, we used Hamish's house, as we had fairly easy access to that. We also didn't use any props for our prelim task, whereas with the final task we had everything from toast to knives, as we helped it gave a more lively atmosphere to the piece and just made it feel a bit more real. For both pieces, lighting was generally natural to give as much realism and just to the piece as possible. The protagonists in our piece are fairly similar, as they both are in a weakened position in comparison to the antagonist. We also used the same actor for the antagonist, as we liked how he came across as sharp and intelligent on camera, as well as giving a dangerous feel to the character as well.
With regards to sound, as was the case with many of the sections, the soundtrack style varied considerably between the 2 different clips. In the preliminary exercise, we had less knowledge when it came to sound. In stark contrast to this, the sound for Top Hat was highly complex and unique. We had overlaid sound. During the chase scene, we had drums overlaid by a white noise to give it a sort of, as an underlying theme of tension in there. We also had quite a few build-ups leading up to my sightings of Top Hat.
I see him everywhere.
For the narrative, we took inspiration from our Wilderness Woods of having a key protagonist and antagonist. That's the baseline for the plot. Top Hat, however, has a distinct style, whereas our characters featuring in the preliminary and Wilderness Woods tasks did not. Our plot therefore grew with the idea of a magician, possibly supernatural, being the antagonist. We also used 2 time parallels in our final piece to develop the complexity of the plot and add a new and interesting dimension to the piece.